Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I am Luke, or the Ottoman Reacts, and, well, a couple of months ago, well, no, it was on the 17th of June, I watched a video called Boat Lift, a story, an untold tale of 9/11 resilience, and it was incredible. It was a documentary about how all the owners of commercial and even privately owned boats in Staten Island, Long Island, around New York, all worked together to evacuate people stuck on Manhattan Island during 9/11 because all those people were terrified and didn't know if another attack at ground level was coming. So they wanted to get out of Manhattan as soon as they could. But the problem was all public transport was shut down. There was no trains, no buses, nothing. They couldn't get off the island the usual way. So the only way to get off the island was by boat. And that's what that was about. And it's since become one of my most viewed videos. It still gets a lot of views, 111 in the last 48 hours, which is quite a lot compared to everything else. I mean, you know, if you go to the view count, see there's only one more video with more views than that in the last 48 hours. So yeah, it did quite well. And in the comments of that video, there was a lot of people recommending something else called Operation Yellow Ribbon. Again, hadn't heard of it before. So I thought today I would finally have a look at it and see what it's all about. It was hard to find, especially a decent quality version, but this looks to be the best quality. So yeah, this is Operation Yellow Ribbon from Gander, Newfoundland. Here we go.
Mentioned earlier that Tom Brokaw had an extremely compelling piece, so without further ado, Tom Brokaw.
Now, this devastating earthquake in Chile is a reminder that when one country gets in trouble, it really does depend on the family of nations for help. That's been especially true between this country, Canada, and the U.S., of course. The ties between the United States and Canada are long and enduring, and not just in good times, it turns out. On September 11th, 2001, the people of Canada came to our aid, managing an unprecedented crisis in the skies. They also took care of tens of thousands of displaced passengers who arrived at their doorstep on short notice. This is the story of one small town that didn't get the attention it deserved in the chaotic aftermath of 9/11 in so many ways. It symbolizes the grace and the unselfish spirit of this very generous nation. September 11th, 2009. This is a scene that has played out in communities for 8 years since the terrorist attacks of 2001. But what makes this ceremony different is where it's taking place. This is the Appleton Peace Park near the town of Gander in Newfoundland, Canada, where during the tragedy of 9/11, there was a bright light on the better part of our humanity.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing that has happened here, and we know that no matter what happens in the world, there are still good people.
Imagine living there, I'm just thinking.
If this place can be somehow shared with the world would be a much better place.
Here in Gander, amid the heartache, an autumn romance blossomed. Here, parents were constantly consoled as they faced wrenching pain. Here, thousands of stranded Americans would form a lasting bond with everyday Canadians who acted with admirable, unwavering kindness.
Here we go.
We can never again look at the New York skyline without remembering that day, September 11th, when terrorists hijacked airliners loaded with passengers and jet fuel flew them into the World Trade Center and killed 3,000 people, altering the lives of an untold number of others. Most of our attention that day, of course, was focused here in New York, but it was a story that reverberated around the world, and it had a special impact on a small Canadian town 1,000 miles north of here, a town that became a safe port in a storm of fear, terrorism, and uncertainty. The province of Newfoundland and Labrador, a former British colony that did not join Canada until 1949, has long been considered Canada's poorest.
Really?
It is largely populated by descendants of Scots and Irish, living simply in often harsh conditions.
It does remind me of the Scottish Highlands a little bit, you know?
Here, neighbors
And the countries in the north, you know, like the Faroe Islands and up there. Yeah, it looks like that kind of place.
relying on neighbors is a necessity of everyday life. Gander, population 10,000, is a small, two-stoplight town in the northeast corner of the island of Newfoundland. Claude Elliott has been mayor of Gander since 1996.
Year I
We
was
only
born.
have 500,000 people on a massive island. We've come through some difficult times, and most Newfoundlanders survive with hard work, helping each other, and that's been passed on from generation to generation.
The cold season can come quickly and severely in Newfoundland, but September 11th, 2001 dawns warm and sunny, a typically bucolic day that will be anything but typical, as Gander is about to be thrust into the catastrophic events unfolding 1,000 miles to the southwest.
It's got a McDonald's.
Its citizens
I'm
to
sold.
be challenged as never before.
September 11th, 2001 started as a normal day in Gander. While we were having coffee, someone said there was a plane that crashed in New York in one of the Twin Towers.
We had complaints of speeding on Airport Boulevard. It's the only four-lane road that we have, and I was parked in front of the curving club. I had my car radio, and I heard what was going on. And like a lot of people, I couldn't believe that this was happening. And I said, that can't be true. It just can't be.
It is such a pretty morning, isn't it?
Perfect fall morning.
On that September morning, air traffic control veteran Ben Sliney is on his first day in his new position as FAA National Operations Manager. Barely an hour into the workday, there is an ominous development.
We were trying to locate American 11. It had shut off its transponder and dropped below radar coverage.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the book is called Hughes. We want to go live right now and show you a picture of the World Trade Center.
A plane has just crashed into the World Trade Center here in New York City.
We saw what appeared to be a fireball at the top of the World Trade Center.
We had reports of another aircraft that had deviated from its course.
Oh, another one just hit. Something else just hit.
U.S. officials say it appears it was a third plane that hit the Pentagon.
I ordered a national ground stop, meaning that no other aircraft could take off. Whatever's necessary. Just get them stopped now. I don't want any more planes on their frequency taking off.
Yeah,
56 minutes.
the Pentagon one. It just, I don't know. That is a very low building, you know. But I'm not going to get into that. That's not what I'm here for. But just, you know, whenever you watch these videos, this footage, it's just so chilling. It's still unbelievable to think it even happened.
It's after the North Tower is struck. An unprecedented decision has been made. Every non-military plane must land immediately.
Yep.
For the first time ever, American airspace is closed.
Oh, God.
This is war. This is a declaration and an execution of an attack on the United States.
The only way to really sort the situation out was to land everyone in our airspace.
The FAA now says that all international flights headed for the United States are being diverted to Canada. Every day, as transatlantic flights enter and leave.
Here's a question I have. I mean, it's a long shot, but if there's anybody who watches this video who was actually on a plane flying to America, you know, and you were still, like, over the Atlantic as this was all happening. Did the flight crew tell you what was going on? Like, so you know, still over the Atlantic, you've got another hour yet, an hour, 2 hours until you actually reach the east coast of America. Did they tell you what was going on when they told you that we have to divert to Canada? Or did they just say, we need to divert to Canada, more information later, and just didn't tell you? Because I've never actually been told what people on those flights were told. I don't know. So did they tell you exactly what was going on, or did they just say, we're diverting, more information to follow, but nothing followed? Do let me know.
Every day, as transatlantic flights enter and leave North American airspace, they are managed here, the Area Control Center in Gander, Newfoundland.
Canada 1174 Center
Wait.
today, clear to send.
1 sec. Did he say all?
As transatlantic flights enter and leave North American airspace, they are managed
As transit... So, right, okay, right. Oh, okay.
here, the Area Control Center in Gander, Newfoundland.
Cool.
Canada 1174 Center today, clear to send to maintain 6,000 people.
On September 11th, when U.S. airspace is shut down, there are almost 400 planes carrying tens of thousands of passengers westbound over the Atlantic. Around 200 are close enough to return to Europe. 167 more are too far across the ocean to turn back.
So 167 of the 400 flights heading to America were past the point of no return. Okay. That's 167 times at least 210. It's by 2001. I don't think they had the A321 yet. So it'd have been all 757s and 767s and things like that. You know, A300s and A330s. So yeah, 167 times at least 240, 50. That's a lot of people that you need to send somewhere.
When did you begin to be aware of what was about to happen in Gander? The flights that had been crossing the Atlantic more than halfway, many of them were going to be headed for Gander and St. John's and Halifax, but Gander would be the big magnet.
I knew that the Canadians were going to get an onslaught of traffic, and I suppose I hoped that they'd be able to handle that traffic.
60 north, 20 west.
The responsibility of handling the traffic falls to a small team led by Don O'Brien, the supervisor on duty at the control center for NAV Canada, the Canadian version of the FAA.
Right.
The arrival sector, we normally would have 3 controllers seated. We quickly went to 14. We train for emergencies. We train for bomb threats, but usually it's a single airplane or maybe a second one, maybe, but not to this level. The activity was going on here.
Yeah. Was another part of your mind?
If you want to get an idea of just how much traffic frequents this particular airspace and route, just go onto Flight Radar 24 and you can see every commercial flight currently in the air. And if you scroll the map over to the east coast of America, it is just... the entire map is covered in little plane icons. It's incredible.
I'm thinking about what had happened in New York and the possibility that there were more terrorists out there.
I'm sure it went through the controllers' heads, it went through my head, but sure, some of those airplanes could have been missiles. We didn't know how extensive this was, but that wasn't our call, really. We just had to get those airplanes on the ground safely.
Cancel.
One of the pilots approaching Newfoundland is Beverly Bass, the first female captain at a major airline. She's flying American Flight 49 from Paris to Dallas with 170 people on board.
From the controller's standpoint, they feared that another airplane was going to be taken down.
Yep.
some of the airplanes were given directions to turn around and go back to their departure city. So we're sitting there cruising westbound and looking out the window, and you can actually see them turn and make 180s and head back to Europe.
Newfoundland is an island located off the eastern edge of North.
Newfoundland is the eastmost point of North America, isn't it? It's where, like, in the early days of transatlantic commercial operation, it's where all there was an airport on Newfoundland where they would all land before then continuing on to their main destinations in America. So if you were flying to, like, I don't know, Chicago or Oklahoma, somewhere that wasn't immediately on the East Coast, they'd stop at Newfoundland, refuel, and then carry on. It was like a 2-leg flight. Actually, some still do that now. Some flights, land in Dublin before they carry on to, like, Las Vegas or LA. Back in the day, I'm pretty sure that Newfoundland was where planes would land before going on into America.
North America. The 167 planes approaching Canada all must land immediately. The vast majority at small airports around the island
St. John's.
and in the nearby
Yeah.
maritime provinces, all controlled in Gander. Over the next 7 hours, Gander Control and the surrounding airports will handle unprecedented traffic under extreme emergency conditions.
Gander, Air India 113, we go to Toronto.
Air India 113 Center, negative. You must now land at Gander. Turn right heading 320.
Roger, turning right heading 320.
Flight paths must be recalculated in 3 dimensions, accounting for speed, direction, altitude. Some planes are too heavy to land and must jettison fuel.
Yeah, dump fuel. Wow.
The risk of collision is ever present. This is an actual radar tape from that morning.
Wow.
Now you're starting to turn them toward Gander.
Yes.
Oh, look, that one there, crossing the path of another flight as it had just gone past. Yeah. Wow.
We got the word, of course, and we had to peel them all northward into Gander, St. John's, and Stephenville. Some of them knew there was activity going on in Kennedy and the crisis in American airspace. Some of them didn't. We were telling them, look, you got to land. And they're saying, no, we're going on to Kennedy or Dallas or wherever. They say, no, you're not.
In the air, as they learn the shocking details, captains worry their own planes could be carrying hijackers, forcing many to hide the truth from their passengers.
Our captain came on the PA system and announced that we had a slight mechanical problem, something to do with an indicator signal or something like that. We were going to have to put down in Gander to have it repaired.
Oh, that's what... Right, so they told the people on her flight that they had a problem, a mechanical fault, and they needed to land for repair. Okay, right. That makes sense. But the...
But there was a national emergency in the United States and announced that we had a slight mechanical problem, something to do with an indicator signal or something like that.
Right.
We were going to have to put down in Gander to have it repaired.
Shirley Brooks Jones is a retired fundraising administrator for Ohio State, returning home from Frankfurt, Germany, on board Delta Flight 15.
Once we got parked, the captain came back on the intercom, apologized to us for the ruse, and said actually the equipment was fine, but there was a national emergency in the United States.
Yeah, so while still in the air, tell a little white lie, and then once you're on the ground, tell the truth. Yeah, you don't want a mass panic on board your plane at 35,000 feet. You just don't want that. Tell them when they're on the ground, and you can actually let people off, go outside, breathe, walk around a bit, collect themselves. Yeah.
3 aircraft that we know of were commandeered. One was crashed into each of the World Trade Center towers in New York City, and another was crashed into the Pentagon outside Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Apparently some type of what would appear to be maybe a terrorist activity or hijacking has occurred. with airplanes which apparently have impacted the World Trade Center in New York City.
On September 11th, 8 domestic flights are scheduled to land in Gander. Instead, 38 planes carrying almost 7,000 people are beginning to fill the tarmac.
Wow.
The spectacle has drawn a crowd from among the town's 10,000 citizens. Oz Fudge is one of just 2 officers on the local police force.
I watched the plane come in, then I seen a jumbo come in, and then I seen another one come in, and I'm looking at this and I'm saying, holy God!
Yeah.
Just if there's 200 people on each one of these planes, and we're going to get 40 or 50 planes, that's an awful lot of people.
Yeah.
Less than 2 hours after American Flight 11 strikes the North Tower of the World Trade Center,
British Airways.
The skies over the United States are empty. For the first time, American airspace is completely closed. In Canada, the Gander Area Control Center somehow lands all 167 planes without incident.
Wow.
It was a sigh of relief. You wipe your brow, you thank God they all got in safely, and it was unbelievable to go from this horrific activity, and then the airspace is completely sterilized. Nobody there. No targets on the radar screen.
Would be bizarre to see.
Here in New York, the sad task of the search for the survivors and the victims goes on and on. In New York, citizen volunteers are flooding toward Ground Zero as emergency workers search for survivors. 1,000 miles from the destruction, the 10,000 residents of the peaceful Canadian town of Gander, with virtually no time to prepare, must also respond with countless acts of generosity, providing food and shelter for thousands of frightened passengers, strangers who have suddenly arrived at their door. Among the stranded, far from home, are the parents of a New York City fireman.
Oh, God.
Not knowing if their son is at Ground Zero, Hannah and Dennis O'Rourke fear they may never see him again.
Imagine that.
Thousands of transatlantic flights underline the strategic importance of Newfoundland's airports.
Gander was an airport before it was a town. In the late 1930s, British and American military officials chose this site on the eastern edge of the continent to build the largest airport in the world. During World War II, this was a takeoff place for American military aircraft headed for the European theater.
Well, yeah.
After the war, Gander continued to play...
It's the nearest point to Europe. Makes sense. Yeah. Those World War II planes didn't have the best range. I think the P-51 could only do about 500 miles before it had to refuel.
A vital role as a refueling stop for transatlantic commercial airliners.
I was right.
But then the jumbo jets came along. They could cross the Atlantic non-stop.
Yeah.
And Gander's role in aviation was greatly reduced until September 11th, when Gander came alive again. A safe harbor for the jumbo jets that had almost put it out of business. And within a matter of hours, this vast tarmac was filled with planes from around the world.
Once again.
Wingtip to wingtip.
Canada is basically becoming a gigantic runway for every plane and aircraft that was destined for the United States today.
In Gander, no one is allowed off the planes until customs and security are in place. Run by airport officials and officers from the regional headquarters of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Mounties. They must process each passenger, plane by plane, until authorities are certain there are no terrorists on board. Among the trapped passengers is New York State Police Officer George Vitale, who is returning from Ireland, where he was doing advanced security for New York Governor George Pataki.
We were on this plane for 19 hours, sat on the tarmac, not really knowing what was going on outside, but knowing that it was pretty horrific.
The number of casualties will be more than any of us can bear, ultimately. And I don't think we want to speculate on the number of casualties. The effort now has to be to save as many people as possible.
There is another New York couple on the Gander tarmac whose connection to the events back home couldn't be more personal.
I just wanted to get off the plane and see what was happening, because I was hoping my son wasn't working that day.
Dennis and Hannah O'Rourke have been visiting relatives in Ireland. When they learn what has happened, they fear for their 44-year-old son, Kevin O'Rourke, a firefighter from Rescue 2 in Brooklyn.
I guess it goes back many years to when I was a kid. The apartment building I lived in, over the years I was there, it ended up having 3 different fires, so I was carried out as a child by a firefighter. So I have fond memories, I have memories to go back to, all of a sudden, in the smoke, this big guy comes up, grabs me, and carries me down the stairs.
When he was going for his fire test, and he said, "Mom, you pray for me." And I said, "Yeah, Kevin, yeah." He said, "Pray for me to pass." I said, "Yeah, Kevin." So he missed it by, 1 or 2 points, and he came home that night and he looked at me. He says, "You didn't pray for me. I didn't pass." I says, "No, Kevin, I prayed for you, you'd fail." So he says, "Mom, that's all I want. That's my calling, is to be a fireman."
While the desperate rescue operation continues in New York, Gander begins the process of absorbing all those passengers. So many that in a matter of hours they will nearly double the local population.
Now, Gander is a town of barely 10,000 people. There was over 6,000 of us. Now, if you extrapolate the numbers, New York City is 8 million people, so what's that? 6 million people showing up on your door saying, "Okay, we're here, do something."
Basically, yeah.
The painstaking process of registering and removing each passenger continues through the night.
Finally, we're free, we're free. We're on the ground after more than 24 hours. We have no idea where we're going, but we're going.
It is not until noon on Wednesday, September 12th, when the last passengers are finally allowed into the Gander terminal. They are exhausted and confused.
Imagine being stuck on a plane for 24 hours, just sat on the tarmac. God, must have been awful.
Not knowing where in the world they have landed.
You are here.
We're going to bus you into Gander, which is just a few minutes away. We're not sure when to get.
Brackets in Canada. Like they're not going to know that that's part of Canada. It is a bit of a stereotype, bit of a joke, isn't it, that Americans don't do geography.
A is going to open up the United States to travel again. The Department of Transportation in Canada has all air traffic in Canada shut down right now. When you see the footage of what has happened, you'll appreciate why things have been done the way they are.
The only vehicles available to
school
transport
buses.
the great volume of passengers from the airport are school buses, and the local bus drivers happen to be on strike.
Oh!
We were told at the time we got a crisis on our hands, and the strike never came into effect whatsoever. All the bus drivers came back, every one.
Wow.
We all came back, and we did our job.
They laid down their picket signs, they went and took their buses and they drove it, and for the next 4 or 5 days just helped out wherever they could. And that's what we're made of. That's the type of people we are. Even though those bus drivers had a dispute with their employer, they had no dispute with the people that landed here.
We'll do the best we can to look after this. If there's anything you need,
That is beautiful. Wow.
anything at all, I mean anything, just ask, and you will be taken care of, bottom line, okay? And make it as comfortable as possible.
Wow.
As passengers arrive in town, the locals rush to meet them with home-cooked meals. Among them is lifelong Gander resident Beulah Cooper, an organizer at the Canadian Legion Hall.
7 o'clock that night, I got a phone call from the Legion and asked me to do a tray of sandwiches. They have them down there by 8 o'clock. I didn't know what was going on. Brought down a tray of sandwiches and I found out about the planes. Your heart went out to each and every one of them. Because the first thing you do is put yourself in their shoes and know how you would feel.
Currently there are thousands of people in Gander and surrounding area that need your help. Please come to their assistance, lend a hand, lend a meal, offer your services wherever possible.
Wow.
Passengers are not allowed to remove their check bags from the plane, so the clothes on their backs and in their carry-ons may be all they'll have for days. Ganderites respond, donating clothing and opening their shops free of charge.
What?
Show your boxes to the camera.
Oh my God.
Hundreds of passengers are also without their prescriptions until owners of the 2 local pharmacies working day and night and across language barriers can fill them all, again, at no cost.
They were able to go into the stores and just take items off the shelves. I'm not even sure they had to pay for them.
Wow.
The people were so accommodating in Gander.
This is our cook. There's chef. There's chef. Oh, you chef.
Even with all the kitchens firing around town, the local citizens cannot possibly feed 7,000 people. The Red Cross and Salvation Army send additional food and supplies, fueled by donations from throughout Newfoundland.
So the whole island.
It's been brilliant. Everyone seems to have pulled together, you know. It's amazing where all the stuff has come from.
The community centre is also acts as a ice rink, and we've stored all the food on the ice surface. And
Wow.
we became known as the largest walk-in refrigerator in the country.
Nice one.
Another problem. Gander has only 500 hotel beds for almost 7,000 unexpected guests. Local schools, churches, and Legion halls must be converted into makeshift dormitories filled with sleeping bags, blankets, and cots. It is only as the passengers are settled around Gander that they see for the first time images of the devastation back home.
There's the plane. You can't miss that.
Some 30 hours after all of this had happened, we finally saw the pictures on television, and we just stood there, you know, not...
So it's like all these people that were like nearly 2 days behind the rest of the world. Purely because of the risk and the protocols. They had to stay on those planes for almost a day before they could be allowed to disembark and be processed into the airport. That's unbelievable, isn't it? They were quite literally nearly 2 days behind the rest of literally the world. They didn't find out until 36 hours later.
After all of this had happened, we finally saw the pictures on television, and we just stood there, you know, not saying a word and just watching those pictures over and over and over.
Yeah.
I think a lot were in shock. You can see that look in their faces of total lost. We don't know what's happening. They're in a place called Gander. Their country has been attacked. They're talking thousands of people that may have perished. What's happening? What is happening here?
I apologize to the families of people that are lost right now. We have lots of families seeking information about who was in...
Rudy? Isn't it? It's Rudy Giuliani?
The World Trade Center.
New York mayor or governor. Forget which one. But yeah, good guy.
Did they get out? Didn't they get out? Are we able to recover them? Aren't we able to recover them? And we don't know the answers to all of those questions yet.
No, the missing posters. Now, there's one thing I remember from all the videos and footage of that day. There's just, I don't know if it's a restaurant or I don't know, just a shop, but there's a wall and it's just filled with posters, missing people posters, and it's just an entire wall, and it's hundreds of them, just hundreds of these faces of people that go missing. It's just like, oh, Jesus, you know, it's awful.
Hannah and Dennis O'Rourke are staying at the Canadian Legion Hall in Gander. By now, they've learned that their son Kevin had been one of the early responders at the World Trade Center, and that he is among the missing.
Oh no!
I seen on the TV what happened to the Twin Towers, and I didn't want to alarm her, but I knew that when they collapsed, I figured nobody would get out of that thing. But we prayed. I came here and prayed, hoped he went so high.
it is reality, you know, as far as in the city of New York, that you are going to lose some of your fellow brothers, you know, battling the Red Devil. Just luck of the draw, I guess.
He says, some are called for nurses, doctors, priests. My calling is to help people. And that's my calling, to be a fireman, helping other people and saving people's lives.
This is an effort involving people that came in on half a day's notice. Some very anxious people, some very worried people, but yet some very thankful people for the hospitality that only the people of Gander and surrounding area can show.
These strangers are just taking us into their home. And it was not just taking us into their home. It was, here's the bathroom, here's fresh towels, here's the refrigerator, there's plenty of food. And then what they said is, now you know where the house is. The door is open.
I got to tell you, this experience with your town has just been beyond belief. We were buying some clothes earlier for the extra day stay, and the shopping clerk actually invited us to her house to take a shower. So it's been like that ever since we've been here.
Wow.
And the people are real nice, you know. I can't believe it, you know. Everybody put their arms around you, you know, and it's always food coming in all the time.
There's not one person that we have come across who hasn't offered to help us in some way. It's overwhelming.
They didn't think of themselves at all at any time. They'd be in that kitchen and working all day, and work the night. It didn't faze them, so they were there for you.
Other than her daily walk to church, Hannah O'Rourke refuses to leave the Legion Hall. Beulah Cooper, the Legion Hall organizer, can't help but notice her pain.
My son's a fireman, but I know this is not New York. And your heart really went out to them. And I tried to get them to come up here and stay, but they wouldn't leave the Legion because they were afraid they'd miss a phone call. She was fantastic to us, and so was everybody else, but Beulah was special. She was like a mother. That motherly love, she'd hold you, you know, and she was great. I talked to her, tried to take her mind off things, but I know I didn't do that because you can't take a mother's mind off her child.
Yeah.
Beulah Cooper tends to the O'Rourke's day and night. She walks Hannah to church to pray for Kevin and for his fellow firefighters.
The community, the love that they have, you could feel it every place around, you know. They keep telling you, keep the faith, he'll be fine, you'll find him, he'll find his way out. I says, if anybody can, Kevin will, you know. So, it was in God's hands.
The quiet peace around Gander was shattered on September 11th when almost 7,000 airline passengers were forced to land here. They came to be known as the Plain People, and they almost doubled the local population. Many of them didn't know the fate of their loved ones. They were confused and anxious. But that anxiety was quickly replaced by gratitude. Gratitude for the exceptional acts of kindness and comfort offered by ordinary people.
When we were stranded here, we were very vulnerable, but everyone made us feel so loved and at home and comforted. Everybody just put everything on hold to take care of us.
Diane Kershke of Houston is traveling home alone after visiting her son's family in Huntington, England. In Gander, she has met another passenger from Continental Flight 5. His name is Nick Morrison, a button-up oil industry engineer from Worcester, England, on his way to Texas for business. Originally scheduled to fly on September 10th, his company had postponed his trip by one fateful day at the last minute.
That's where I first saw Diane, which was over here. She was sat on an army cart all on her own. There were a bunch of other women over there. There was something in the order of 90 people here. Life, you're on a treadmill, you get up, you go to work, you come home, you get up, you go to work, you come home. And you perhaps don't have time to stop and examine where you are. And all of a sudden, you're plucked out of this everyday life for 4 days. And yes, you do get a chance to examine where you are and where you want to go.
U.S. airspace reopens on Thursday, September 13th.
Oh, I love this song.
Over the next 3 days, the Gander Airport once again becomes a swarm of activity. Around town, the schools and Legion halls begin to empty.
Our community had a sense of sadness because they didn't know if they were ever going to see, and probably never will see, a lot of those people again. But there was also a lot of friendships developed from it. So there was a sense of sadness, but a sense of relief that I did something good to help those people.
We rode on a school bus to go back to the airport to leave. And of course I had already been crying because we were leaving the people that we'd met here. And Nick was trying to comfort me, and he was going to kiss me on the forehead. And well, I didn't think about him being a gentleman and kissing me on the forehead. I thought he just missed my lips. So I just grabbed him and kissed him on the bus.
And now they say, oh, wow, so even
Shirley Brooks Jones.
In the middle of all this chaos and under the circumstances, two people met each other in similar circumstances because they were heading to the same place and found each other. Oh, God, this is just incredible. Quite speechless, to be honest. You know, I've never heard of this story before. The first I've heard of it is the comments from on the boat lift video. People saying, "Oh, you've got to watch a video about the town of Gander in Canada." And I was just like, never heard of it. You know, and I don't understand how, because like the boat lift story, I hadn't heard of that either. But I so should have, and everybody else should. You know, if I haven't heard about both those stories, and when it comes to 9/11, I know a lot of the stories, and I just think about all the other people that have never heard about this. It's never been on the news or mentioned when they do like the anniversary piece, because there was the 10-year anniversary in 2021. And, you know, our four main TV channels were full of documentaries and just programs about 9/11, like a week leading up to the 11th, and then a couple of days after. But Americans might not believe it, but we do. You know, there's a lot of when it's something significant in American history. It's all about. On our TV, you'll find something about it on one of our channels. But I've never heard of this. And I find that quite unbelievable. I mean, this town, it's smaller than mine, quite a lot smaller. And the town that I live in, it's probably only about 3 miles across and 3 miles wide. Maybe 4. But there's about 40,000 people here. There's like 10,000 in this little town. All of a sudden they had 7,000 extra people. And they just, you know, the ones that needed new clothes, they just opened up their clothes stores and said, take what you want and you don't have to pay. The ones that needed medication opened up their pharmacies. I'll fill your prescription, you don't have to pay. Inviting them into their own homes to take a shower. Making homemade food and bringing it to wherever they were staying, a school, a gym. You know, this is a story that should be as popular as any other on that day.
The retired Ohio State fundraising administrator boards Delta Flight 15 to begin her journey home. She's constantly thinking about the generosity of the people in the Gander area, wondering what she could ever do to pay them back. And then, going home, an inspiration.
All of us, as we were leaving, tried to leave some money with the people, and they wouldn't take it. They'd just look at us and they'd say, no, you do the same for us.
Once the flight is airborne, Brooks Jones asks the pilot if she can make an announcement. A request, really, for passengers to donate money toward a scholarship fund for graduates of Lewisport Collegiate School, where so many have spent their days in Newfoundland.
Several of the men went around, picked up the pledge sheets, counted up how much the people from all over the world had pledged, and they had pledged something over $15,000 U.S.
When Delta 15 touches down in Atlanta, the passengers and crew, who for days were left wondering if anyone remembered them, are surprised by the warm, enthusiastic welcome they received. After 4 stressful days spent tending to her passengers, and with the thought of 2 hijacked American Airlines flights still fresh in her mind, Captain Beverly Bass recalls the moment she arrived home in Dallas.
So we're rolling down the runway. I'm looking straight ahead, and I put the airplane into reverse, and it's the first chance I've had to look to the right, and that's when I saw the American flag. That was it. That was the first time that my emotions came into play.
George Vitale returns home to a New York deeply wounded by 9/11. His everyday, a reminder of what was lost.
I come out my house, and now I'm looking at that Manhattan skyline in front of me, and there's this gaping hole. And I remember becoming so overwhelmed emotionally that I just broke out in tears. I lost a lot of people that I knew, co-workers that never came home. I have sometimes guilt because my experience was so warm. I've made lifelong friends. It's kind of like if this evil attack by evil people never happened, I would have never met on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. The most wonderful people on earth.
The O'Rourkes finally arrive home on Saturday afternoon, 4 days after they were diverted to Gander. It will be 9 more days before they finally get the call they had been dreading. Kevin's body has been recovered in the rubble of the North Tower.
I know Kevin so well. He'd be the last man out if it was his way. He'd get everybody out before himself, and that'd be it. That's the type he was.
He was only 44 years old. Parents aren't supposed to bury their children. Children are supposed to bury their parents. The way he died, it was hard. It was hard.
I tell you, each year it gets easier. It don't. It gets harder.
Oh, we're dreading that.
The regular rhythm of everyday life in Gander returns quickly following that extraordinary week in September. Schools are schools again. Churches fill on Sundays. Legion halls open their doors. But the bonds forged in that short time endure to this day. Shirley Brooks Jones has returned 17 times to give back to the people who were so generous to her.
How big is that scholarship fund now?
The scholarship fund is approaching, with insurance and cash, around $900,000.
Wow!
And 111 young people of the Lewisport area have been helped by that scholarship.
Last spring, Stacy Hoff is one of 12 Lewisport seniors awarded a...
I don't want to get all soppy, but it's like, you know, because the people of that little town gave all those passengers, gave their everything to them today. Those people helped them in their, like, tomorrow, the future, you know, the scholarship for their kids to be able to do whatever, you know, get a football scholarship, whatever they went on to build their futures. That's, you know, that's like a real lasting legacy from this. It's beautiful.
Delta 15 scholarship.
And it comes to no surprise, I'm sure, that the graduate of the year for 2009 is Stacy Hoff.
She is now a freshman at Memorial University in St. John's, Newfoundland.
I was proud. I was proud not only to receive the scholarship, I was proud of my community for what they have done.
Well, the folks around here changed your life, but you changed their life as well.
Yeah.
Yes, we've become very, very close. They're my second family, really.
Yeah. They treat them like nothing
the Gander
less
experience also
but
forms
family.
a new family. After their impulsive goodbye kiss, Nick Marson and Diane Kershke, living an ocean apart, continue to phone and write each other. He visits her in October 2001 and again in December, and ultimately arranges to be transferred to the Houston office. On September 7th, 2002, they are married. And for their honeymoon, they return to Gambo, the village near Gander where they met. The community welcomes them back with a song written just for them.
So when you said to your friends in England, I was stranded in Gander, but I met this lady from Texas. They say, Nick, what's going on with you here?
One of my friends said to me, has she got that Texas twang? And I said, yes. And you still love her?
Wow.
For the O'Rourkes, memories of 9/11 remain deeply painful. But the lasting gratitude they feel for a kind stranger who became a dear friend during their darkest hours brings them back to Gander for the first time, 8 years after they have buried their son.
I don't believe it.
Made you feel right at home, like you were friends forever. And you don't forget that.
In your case, you had great loss, but great gain because of all these friends that you made here.
Oh, I made great friends.
They'll be your friends forever.
Forever, forever. Can never thank them enough. It's unbelievable what these people have done. The love that's here, everything, you know, it's just unbelievable.
What we keep encountering time after time is an enormous contrast between the darkness of the events in the United States and the goodness that was going on here. So in many ways, Gander played a critical role, not just in getting people through that time, but as an example of what humanity can be when it's at its best.
Well, I think there was a lady, she was 80 years of age, and when she was leaving, I think she summed it all up. She said, when I heard about what had happened in the world, I had lost all faith in mankind. But after spending 5 days here with you people, you've restored my faith. There still is good people lifting our world.
That could be the legacy of Gander.
It could very well be.
Definitely.
In a lakeside park just outside of Gander, there is this monument to the local residents who put their lives on hold to help 7,000 strangers stranded far from home on a terrifying day. Here, every minute of every hour, thousands of acts of kindness were repeated. Here, in gratitude, passengers created a scholarship fund that will endure for generations. Here, amid the heartache, an autumn romance blossomed. Here, parents were consoled as they faced the prospect of the loss of a son at ground zero. Amid so much savagery, so much confusion, the people of Gander and Canada were a glowing reminder of the best that we can be when the need is the greatest. And Kevin O'Rourke, the firefighter from Rescue 2 in Brooklyn who was lost in the World Trade Center last November, his daughter gave birth to a son. So now Dennis and Hannah have a great-grand.
That's too much. That's too much.
Last November, his daughter gave birth to a son. So now Dennis and Hannah have a great-grandson. Now his name is Kevin. So he lives on.
If you ever need your faith restored in human kindness, that should be compulsory viewing.
Well, it's a great place. I love Newfoundland and Labrador. I've been up there fishing, and they're just very representative of the people. It's a harsh land, and they settled it a long time ago. And as they say to us, this is how we get along here. We help each other out. And frankly, they didn't understand what the fuss was all about. They kept saying to me, why are you doing this story? This is just how we live our lives. So it is, I think, during a troubled time in America, a reminder of how people and communities, even across borders, can help each other.
How many places on Earth could that have happened in?
Well, I don't know. I think that the best of humankind comes out during a tragedy. So I think it's, we see that in this country. We see it in where I go in undeveloped parts of the world where people will respond very quickly. We saw it in Haiti. It's going on right now in Chile, I'm sure, today during this great devastation. It's just sad that it takes a tragedy to bring people together in that fashion. So that's a very good symbol for the rest of the world to look at, Gander.
There were not too many beautiful stories that came out of that terrible Tuesday in 2001. No. That was one of them.
Well, the other thing that we felt strongly is that not enough Americans knew about it. And because of the chaos after 9/11, we were consumed, understandably, with trying to put our country back together again. And so when I got up there, I was vaguely aware of the dimensions of it, but not nearly to the degree that we discovered that it played out over a long period of time, and the passengers remain grateful to this day.
Compelling. Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Tom Brokaw. We'll get back to speed skating, the medal races, and mentioned earlier that.
I guess that's it. Well, I'm sorry, I'm just a bit lost for words at the moment. And so, in the comments from the people who wanted me to see this, there was a few who mentioned, albeit quite vaguely and briefly, but enough to make it clear enough that those kind of things happened. So, I suppose I could have a look, Like, people said in their comments that the Gander citizens, so here's one, look, took them into their homes, fed them, cared for them, gave them beds to sleep in. So comments like that gave me a pretty vague but decent enough idea of what they did for him. But that, just, when it goes into the detail, that two people met each other and then got married, and then, he got relocated to was it Denver office, or I can't remember, but the office where she was from, and then they got married the year after. The scholarship program that was established by the passengers that, you know, I mean, she said that they started that in the air. You know, they just started taking donations off the passengers on the planes. And then a few years later, it's worth nearly $1 million, and it had helped over 100 kids to be able to go to college and do what they want to do. And then all the other little bits, how one of them said that that woman invited him or her to go to their house, take a shower, think about the prescriptions, the ones that needed clean clothes, because they were only allowed to take their carry-on bags off the plane once they were allowed off the planes. They couldn't get their proper luggage, so they had no clothes for as long as they were there, and some were there for 4 or 5 days. So they just opened up their own clothing businesses and let the passengers go take whatever they want. They didn't have to pay. Little details like that. It's just, that's what makes a story like this for me have such an impact. Like, you know, this little town in Newfoundland, 10,000 people, all of a sudden they've got 7,000 more people that they've never met. They never would have otherwise even heard of them, knew they existed, if it wasn't for what happened on that day. And they just gave them everything they could. Literally everything they could. Not just the woman who made the sandwiches and then, you know, the Salvation Army and whatever were bringing food. And they literally just let them go into their own businesses and take what they want. You know, that for a small business owner, that can be the difference between survival and bankruptcy. But that just didn't matter. They were just like, go in, take what you want. I don't care. You need my help more than I need your money today. It's, oh, wow. I actually kind of hate that this story isn't more well known now. Because it deserves to be. And, you know, they said at the end that the people who took part in this to help out, they were confused when the passengers started doing things to help them and to say thank you, and they were like, "Oh, we don't want that. You know, we just did what we always do." But come on, they deserve it. You know, 7,000 people were made to pretty much feel at home. Home-cooked meals, a bed, a shower, free clothes, medication if they needed it. Anything they wanted, they got it. That's what family does. You know? It's like, when I was a kid, I used to go and stay at my grandparents' house for the weekend, every weekend. And while I was there, I had everything I needed. I had clothes, my own bedroom, food. If I was ill or whatever, they'd take care of that by getting me some cold remedy or whatever. That's what these people did, and it's just absolutely beautiful. What a story. So, yeah, I think going forward, whenever I get the chance to, I need to tell people about this now. Like, the people that I know will actually make the effort to look for it and say, next time you're browsing on YouTube, just watch this little 40-minute documentary about a little town in Canada called Gander. I feel like that's the least I can do, because it isn't a well-known story. As I said, I'd never heard of it. I'd never heard it mentioned on any of the documentaries that we play every year. It's not just because I know the analogy I gave was in 2021 for the 10-year anniversary, but it is literally every year. Between like the 6th and the 12th of September, it's mostly on Channel 4, but on every channel there's at least one documentary a day about 9/11, every single year. And I have never in 13 years heard about this. In fact, not 23 years. 20-year anniversary, it'd have been 2021. I forget how old I am sometimes. Jesus Christ. Yeah. In 23 years, I've never heard of this. Nearly 23 years. 23 years in 2 months. In 2 months' time, it'll be 23 years. But yeah. All those documentaries. I didn't even know there was a town called Gander in Newfoundland. I'd heard of St. John's because, as I mentioned, I knew that that's where planes always used to stop to refuel during transatlantic flights. But I'd never heard of Gander, and I didn't know about this. And that is just shocking. Just, you know, in the UK, stories like this. I mean, they mentioned at the end that guy who was interviewing Tom Brokaw, who was presenting this. He said to him, where else in the world would that have happened? And if it was something going on in Europe, which meant planes had to divert and land in the UK, the people in hundreds of towns in England would have done this. Especially if they were being diverted to Yorkshire. So stories like this are normally, you know, quite popular. It's such a shame that it's so unknown. Wow. But I feared the way they were presenting it about Kevin O'Rourke, the fireman. You sort of got the impression that it was going to turn out he didn't make it. But when they confirmed it, it was just such a gut punch. It was stuck all that way away. I mean, what could they do, really? It's not like they could have run down to Ground Zero to look for him. But, yeah, it must have just been awful. And it's 3 weeks, did it say, to find him? Oh, God. I don't know. Now that I've seen this and I know about this, I just feel like I wish I could do something to make it, to get it to more people, you know, like, is there a way I can write to, I don't know, the BBC and request that they play this documentary for this year's round of 9/11 programming? Because they should. They definitely should. But I love the scholarship thing. That's amazing. Wow. What an example of beauty coming out of tragedy. That's what it was. I'm glad I've watched this now. So, yes, I guess that's the end. That's everybody who made a comment telling me about this. Thanks for it. Thanks for letting me know about it. And, as I say, I'll try and tell everybody I can about this now. Well, it's the least I can do. And about the boat lift story. But actually, the last time my grandma visited me here, I showed her this video, the boat lift video. So at least she knows about that now. But, yeah, the Gander story, I need to tell as many people as I can about that. So, yeah. Shout out to all the people who recommended it. And also, can people stop commenting on the 9/11 boat lift resilience video about Dunkirk? I wasn't comparing it to Dunkirk. I was saying it reminded me of Dunkirk. If you actually listen to what I say, I wasn't comparing the two. I was saying it reminded me of Dunkirk. I said it was like America's Dunkirk. I do know that there's a big difference between the two. So, yeah, I just want to say that. I did put a pinned comment up about that it seems nobody's read it, and people are still commenting, you're comparing the two, you can't compare this to Dunkirk. I wasn't. Okay? But there you go. That was Operation Yellow Ribbon, the story of Gander during 9/11, and what an incredible story. Is the scholarship program still open and taking donations? That could be something. You know, I could, when it's September, I could send a small donation, or try and get people on the YouTube channel to send them as well. Do let me know about that. I'll have a think about trying to start some kind of just something, and it'd raise the profile of this story as well. So do tell me if the scholarship is still taking public donations. But I'm going to end this there. So thanks for watching. If there's any more stories like this from that day that are, same sort of thing, beautiful stories of people trying to help others but not well known like this, do tell me. I want to know. I want to know now. And to all the people in Gander, I don't know if any of them will be watching this, but yeah, you didn't help me on that day, but I'm just going to say thank you on their behalf, because you did a duty. It was just like an incredible duty that helped so many people. It actually changed people's lives. I mean, the marriage between those two people that met there, that was beautiful. Yeah, just massive respect to the people of that little town. God bless them all. Wow. Yeah. So thanks for watching. And there's cats fighting outside my house. Lovely. Yeah. I guess that's it. So thanks for watching, and as I said, recommend any other documentaries about stories like this from that day. Let me know about the scholarship thing, and yep, just thank you. Thanks for watching. Thank you to the people of Gander, and I hope you'll like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.